everybody. Welcome to Rosie Speaks. I'm no longer going to try to say what episode that this is because my recording schedule is super busy and super crazy right now, and I don't want to get it mixed up. So this is the Faizeh episode. That's what this one's called. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on my show.
Well, thanks for having me.
How has your quarantine been?
Busier than my non-quarantine.
I believe that 100%.
So yeah, that was unexpected. But it wasn't with new things. It was just, oh, now I have time to do this, but I still didn't. So
I understand 100%. So we're going to start off with this question. I hear that allegedly you're on the run in Caid. Allegedly.
Well, allegedly. Because His Majesty, long may he live. He is under the impression that I am trying to cause some sort of insurrection, which I would not do, obviously, because I'm in fealty to the crown.
Of course.
And also, Tahira is the queen, and I adore her, so why would I want to do that to her? Right? So,
of course.
So it's just a big misunderstanding. And yeah, so he just put out a warrant for my arrest, and you know, but I'm like Carmen Sandiego. Who knows where I am?
So that leads me into a question from a baroness of a land that doesn't exist.
Someone to whom you are
birthed from.
Yes.
Yes. Baroness Tina asks, how are you doing living on the run?
Well, I'm finally getting some exercise, so quite well, actually. It's very liberating when when you can, run amok and you don't have to I don't know. It's not like I'm gonna suddenly stop being me. So.
I know, of course not. Of course not. But now you're running around.
It's true. It's true. And it's been nice flitting from one corner of Caid to the next,
Who knows where you'll be next?
Who knows?
So this is going to lead me into my very first question inspired by your daughter.
Yay!
What is the most profound question she's asked you?
Oh my gosh. She has asked me many things. Mostly though, I don't know if she's asked a lot of profound things as much as she has made declarations.
That works.
And well, I don't know how this is profound to me because she's my kid. But one time we were listening to the Hamilton soundtrack, and the part where it sings about the world turning upside down. And I was, of course, singing along at the top of my lungs. And she was like, there's no such thing. The world cannot be upside down because the world is a sphere suspended in space. So there is no up or down. And this was when she was like 7. I was like, crazy. I mean, you're right, but
you just need to have her call Lin-Manuel Miranda and tell him directly.
I think I will. So,
like, excuse me, there is no up or down in space.
Right? It was she was deeply offended by this notion.
That's very serious business. You gotta know.
It's true. It's true.
That's awesome. Next question is a very fun question. Mistress Mary, again with the Welsh name that I'm not going to pretend to pronounce.
Right. I know of whom you speak.
She asks, if you could design the perfect event, what would it look like?
Okay. So it would be very similar to my very, very first SCA event, which I don't actually count as my first SCA event because it was also a belly dance event. And so like SCA people were there, but it was mostly just other belly dance people, which is why I went. And it was in Navaheim. Yes. And it was Mideast Feast. Now, there were things that I would do a little differently that would also include some things that would be similar to Mideast Feast that happens in the Barony of or the Kingdom of Aidenville, which is one of my favorite events. And we have talked about doing this in my own barony, but the calendar is so packed, and every time we bring it up, we get like, oh, but when are we going to do it? Because the calendar is so packed. So it never happens, much to my dismay. Also, everyone wants me to like put it on unilaterally, which I am not willing to do. So it would, I know this is probably more than you asked.
No, this is exactly what I want. Go.
Okay. So it would include a lot of actual period Central Asian and Near Eastern and North African and South Iberian stuff. So we'd have dancing, obs. We'd have authentic music, which might only appeal to me, but it would have, you know, someone playing a canoon, which incidentally, I believe that Mistress Kellebeck can play. It would have period feasting, and it would have a souk outside where everyone could shop, and it would be like a marketplace and not just, you know, whatever. It just would be, it would be awesome. And we would eat and people would sing and pretty people would dance and we'd drink and just anyway, people would get up and tell stories. I mean, it's very feisty, but to me, it would be a very Central Asian kind of thing. So like how a lot of people speak about the revels, how they used to be, which like that was kind of dying out when I first started playing. Not that we don't still have feasts, but like that kind of, that's an event in and of itself instead of just being Yule or just being an afterthought after an anniversary event or something like that. Like it's a whole, and it would be like all day and we would have time where everyone could get up and dance and things like that. And so that would just delight my soul. And yeah, and then people would teach Central Asian dance, and there would be no teaching of modern belly dance. It would all be
traditional.
It would all be period. It would, I mean, it wouldn't be like, well, another thing that would be super cool is like the perfectly period feast that happened, but it would be like a Central Asian, like specifically this period in Persia and this region in Persia, because the Persian Empire, as we know,
huge,
was very big and expanded and shrank and that kind of thing. So anyway, or it would be very specifically like Egyptian, would be very specifically whatever, Ottoman, yeah. and that would rock. That would rock.
That would be super cool. So I heard about the perfectly period feast from Giles and Giuseppe. And it's like the concept of it is super interesting. And I think that it could be, it would definitely be a challenge per se. Because while there are a lot in my area or in our area, there are people who are Near Eastern, Asian, and that kind of like culture, SEA wise. But it's definitely not like a common thing. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it would be fun to just be like, oh, this is going to be super different.
Yes. And there is incidentally, I would like to say there's nothing wrong, in my view, of certain types of modern belly dance showing up at war. Just don't want to be accused of, because I do that. I do that too. But at a perfectly period feast, you want it to be, perfectly period. But there is a lot of confusion in the SCA also about what is Persian or what is Turkish or what is Egyptian. And people tend to put it under this umbrella of just, I'm going to wear my Middle Eastern outfit today. And to someone like me, what I hear is like, it would be like me saying, I'm going to wear my European today. It's, they're very specific. And actually, while in the little chat group that I have going with my friends that are helping me, that are not helping, they are making my garb for my elevation. There was some discussion because I sent an Ottoman pattern, and I said, but I want a Persian outfit, and well, this is too fitted to be Persian, which is true. And so then Cristobal, who is amazing, sent a Persian pattern. And anyway, that's
Her Grace is being elevated to the Order of the Pelican sometime in the future.
Hopefully, unless I screw it up somehow and they yank it away from me.
Guess it's because you're on the run, obviously.
Obviously.
It has nothing to do with a global pandemic and people needing to be safe at all.
No, not at all.
No. All right. Let's go to the next question then. Again, from Baroness from an Unknown Land, Tina, asks, when did your fascination with guyliner begin?
I don't recall ever not having it. So probably when I was a teenager in the 80s, and in the 80s a lot of boys wore eyeliner, and so that, I mean, I was in the early 80s, you were either like, you had to get labeled, because of course when you're a teenager,
of course, that's the only way.
You have to be labeled. Anyway, because I was a more alternative kind of gal, I was a new romantic. So I was like, I'm neuro. Anyway, it's so ridiculous looking back at that. But anyway, like Adamant, I thought he was so like sexy. My 13-year-old self just, whew.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I know. I mean, he didn't age too poorly. Some of the like, oh my, Robert Smith. Look, I mean, he's the same in style-wise now, almost 50 years later. Or yeah, 50 years later. No, I'm 50. He didn't start in 1970. 40 years later, yeah, he still does his hair the same and everything like that. But I'd be sad if he stopped. I still love The Cure. They're still, a great band. And anyway, yeah, so my thing about guyliner probably started when I was a teenager. Yes, there he is. You could tell that he's had things to drink, though, over the past 40 years.
At least once or twice.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple cigarettes here and there.
Yeah. But he's a brilliant musician, so their music still sounds, it holds today as well, in my opinion. So I can be biased.
Excuse me while I choke on my own saliva really fast. Okay. Next question, inspired by Alice. is what mythical creature would benefit the world most if it were real?
I have a couple answers. So I'm going to give the SCA answer. The mythical creature that would benefit. What did you say?
I want all of the answers, but SEA first.
Oh, you want all of the answers? Okay. Well, so I'll start with the SCA answer. The mythical creature that would most benefit the world is the peer who never makes mistakes. That would be awesome.
I almost had coffee come out of my nose. Yeah, that's a mythical creature if ever there was one.
That is a mythical creature. And I don't mean that to be critical of peers, maybe a little bit. You know, I hold myself to a certain standard, and yet I know that I make mistakes as well. But I mean it also in the please grant us the grace that you would want us to grant you. So it is discouraging when the entire Ladies of the Rose or the Order of the Rose is we're all this way. We're all a bunch of old biddies because of one person from another kingdom that someone met once who was mean to them, you know. I mean, you know, or of course the whole seam checker thing or whatever. We all have moments where and also, I don't know if you know this, but the SCA is a magnet for people who don't always have the greatest social skills.
I've heard that about.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
So it's wonderful in that everyone is welcome and we have found our people. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful in that regard. But it also means that sometimes we say things that we don't mean it to be hurtful. We're just saying it, and someone is receiving it in a way that is very hurtful. And so Aura is so amazing to me because she always manages to stay so positive and gentle and kind, and she's definitely somebody that I aspire to be like. And she often says that adage about never ascribe, I'm going to get it wrong, but don't assume someone's being a jerk when it could just be a miscommunication.
Right.
And that actually, sometimes when I'm feeling a little butthurt, I think of that. And, you know, most of the time someone just didn't think about how they're saying what they're saying or whatever. So anyway, that's the mythical creature that it would be awesome if somebody could always be perfect and always be courteous and always work hard and always, you know,
be polite and give advice that was helpful and never point someone in the wrong direction on accident.
Exactly. And never need coffee
or never sleep or, you know, be a human.
And always was perfectly ironed and, you know,
perfectly period.
Yes. That would be amazing, but that person doesn't exist. So,
yes. Okay.
The other mythical creature that's not SCA, I don't know. I'm actually kind of fond of dragons. So
what do you think Alice would say?
Alice would definitely say unicorn.
That's what I was thinking. So this morning I was getting ready for this, like finishing up, organizing up my questions for today. And I saw that question and I immediately got sent back to Great Western War when I got to meet the mythical creatures in your story that you tell, Alice.
Oh, yes.
And I was just like, oh, nope, this is going to have to be my question.
Yes. Oh. Larry. Yeah. He's a good guy.
All right. I've got one more serious question, and then the rest are quite funny.
Okay.
Next question is, in your real life, you are a belly dancer, like for work.
Yes.
And that sometimes ascribes you to some interactions with strangers that are interesting.
That's tactful.
And I was wondering if there's a bit of a comparison in the way that people interact with you as an artist and a dancer and the way that people would act with you when you were a sitting queen.
Oh, wow. It was very different for me. And I stepped down in 2008. So even that was what, 12 years ago. So I am a different person myself. So my feelings for it, like, I don't know. I may experience it differently now than I did then, because I have motherhood entered my life after stepping down from being queen. That being said, and I'm sure that most queens would agree with me on this, and that is that you feel very maternal towards your populace. And everyone was really very respectful and supportive when I was queen. There were moments that it was assumed that I didn't know what I was talking about. Towards the beginning of my first reign, more than any other time. And there was, I don't want to get all, but anyway, I'm going to. There is still some misogyny that is prevalent in the SCA, and part of that is just because of the way it was built and the things that we value in it, and the people that we support in it, and that kind of thing. And at my first coronation, someone said to me that they were very worried right before I was going to walk into the processional to get, with Edric to get coronated. Coronated, is that the right word? Coronated?
Coroneted?
Crowned. Crowned. They said, I'm worried that the peers are going to eat you alive, because there was this perception, and this is fine. I don't mind that people have this perception of me, or that people may still have this perception of me, that I was just basically going to be Edric's arm candy, and that I was just some pretty young thing that was just there to hold the spot and that kind of thing. And so that was, I responded with, I think I'll be okay. And Edric, if you look at all four of his queens, every single one was like really good in their own way. Like, he didn't just like willy-nilly choose queens. Like, you know what? You'll do. I mean, he chose queens based on who he thought would be good for the kingdom. So, and I am honored that I was one of those people that he asked to make into a queen. So anyway, so what does this have to do with me being a belly dancer? Well, because of how our Western culture perceives belly dance, and because of our Western culture, the way we tend to objectify women, there is this idea that belly dancers are like, that belly dance in itself exists to please for what is it? The male gaze. That's the word I'm looking for. The term that is there for the male gaze. And that is an element of it, to be something that is beautiful, not necessarily specifically for the male gaze, but to be present something lovely. But the research doesn't support that, and understanding the culture doesn't support that, and knowing that women dance for other women more than they do anything else doesn't support that. But that's not to say it doesn't have that element. I mean, if you are a working girl and you want to present your wares, you're going to do it in a way that's going to be pleasing. And I mean a specific type of work.
Yes. This show is not PC. I wasn't sure how level you wanted to.
So, anyway, but because women get reduced to just their ability to please a man and their body parts, then there's an assumption that they don't think there's not. And so that's, I share quite regularly some of the stuff I get. And you know what? It's not just because I'm a belly dancer. A lot of women in general have to deal with this. And the only reason I get it more than someone else may, it's not just because I'm an entertainer. It's not because I might be pretty. It is just because I am out there and I have public access, because that's the only way people can get a hold of me if they need to hire me for their wedding. I can't be behind some firewall. So then, and because my art is a commodity, and so sometimes that line gets blurred between whether it's me as a commodity or what I'm presenting as a commodity. And so, so dudes then assume that I'm just this, body, that I don't have feelings, that I don't have, thoughts, and I'm not hilarious or whatever, which we all know that I am hilarious.
You are hysterical.
Thank you.
But it was a very interesting, this question is something that I thought of, mostly because I also have experienced being a public figure in both the mundane world and the SEA world. So for me, the comparison that I have, which I think is different from yours, is in the mundane world, I don't have as much of an issue interacting with the populace as I do sometimes in the SEA. And I think that that's because the SEA is sort of an enclosed, like, we're all a community that exists here, and I just happen to have existed in this community for 25 years, where in the real world, everything is very linear and kind of more fluid. So I pop around into different communities, and I can enter into an adult, like, I'm literally an adult human with an adult career, and other people see me as an adult human with an adult career, where I'm having a little bit, not so much now, but definitely like in Wilhelm Mancida's first reign, I had a lot of like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just a kid. And I had to like trudge through that.
Right.
Before I got to now.
Right.
And so
it's hard.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, and it's hard to, I mean, I view you as an adult, but weirdly, I simultaneously view you as that little girl. So it's because you comport yourself as an adult and because you're my friend.
Right.
So of course I see you that way, but there's still always that image, like, because that's still there.
But also, it can't count for you because my first king was your king. So I think that that's a little bit of a different thing, because having reigned with Edric twice, right? Twice?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is who I was with him. Is I literally was a child, like a 2-year-old.
Yes.
When Edric reigned the second
With
time.
Batista, yeah. I can picture the pictures of you with him with Batista. Yeah.
Yeah. But I interacted with you as an adult.
Right.
And so I'm now getting into a group of people who can separate the two. And those are the people that I tend to keep in my circle, but it's not so much the people that I have in my circle that caused the issue. Right. It was like people getting upset at me for being the volunteer steward at Great Western War because I was a kid and didn't know anything. But I think I have one experience that like pops into my head immediately that I can compare directly as something that has also happened to me in the real world. So about 2 years ago, somebody was trying to argue with my mom, who was running the baronial camp at the time, about smoking weed on Great Western War campsite, which is not allowed.
Right.
And while it is legal in the state of California, it is not federally legal. And we are, at the time, before the new rules came out, everything was federal rules only. And this individual, who happened to be a member of the chivalry, decided that he was the only person who could possibly be right. And was arguing with my mom about smoking weed. And so I come on. This was my mistake. I probably shouldn't have involved myself. However, I interacted and I'm like, hey, like, it's illegal. I'm sorry. You can do it in your car if you want to, but really what's happening is it's still illegal. And you can't do it in the campsite. Like, that's the rules. And he goes, oh, well, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You're crazy, blah, 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 blah. You don't know the rules. And my favorite part is the only reason why you have gotten anywhere in the SCA besides being a small child is because you sucked your way up.
Are you kidding me?
No. I swear to God. And that is, in fact, something that I have experienced in the real world. I, right out of college, got a really good job. Like, right out of college, got a really good job. And a couple of people who were involved in that industry were just like, oh, well, there's no way that you could have gotten this job, like, naturally. Like, you didn't get this job because you deserved this job. You got this job because you were irritating or because you're pretty. And I'm like, okay, I still have the job. But yeah, so that's one of those weird things. Do you want to hear what Laura's response to that was?
Yes.
Says, where's my blowjob? I think that at the time I was talking to, oh man.
I know who you're talking about too.
I know, but my flavor, or I don't mind being truthful and honest about shitty people here, but I don't want to like directly call people out, but I'm not like shy about this story. A lot of people know who I'm talking about, and I mean, whatever. Shit happens, yo. It was a long time ago. The part that was the most annoying is that he had been my parents' friend for 30 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I mean, whatever, yo. Yeah. If all I got out of the SCA from sucking dick was work, I'm not a good at sucking dick.
No.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe that's not what happened.
Yeah. That's so irritating. So I was a photographer for 15 years before I became a belly dancer. And I worked at 2 different studios. And both of them, I 100% know that I was hired because I was young and cute. 100% know that that was why I got hired. However, once I had the job, I had to do a good job. It's not like I could just Like,
I can't be cute and not work at the same time. Like, that's not how the world works.
it's not, I mean, I still had to take good pictures. And because I'm me at the second studio that I worked at, I like kept track because my boss was he was a really, really good man, but he was a product of his generation. And so did a lot of sexist things. Like, he'd give regular raises to the guys because they had families to support. And, you know, I worked for him for 10 years and I got a raise twice and I had to ask both times. And, but anyway, so I would keep track of like whose portraiture would actually sell the most because I'm mildly competitive. And yeah. And then I would like broadcast it to everybody. I'd be like, well, just so you know, all of my packages are averaging around $700 and all of this person's are $300.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, it's one of those weird concepts where a lot of people, including me, don't really think about being a royal as being like a public figure in the same way that if you are an artist in the mundane world or in your real life, you are a public figure. Like, if your product, whatever it is out there, that makes you a public figure.
Yes.
And it's very interesting to see the different ways that people treat you. And I think that it's honestly what it is in my brain is like availability. So like in the real world, you aren't like talking to an audience, to a very narrow audience. You're just talking to the world. And so you have more opportunity for people to be disrespectful or to send you pictures of shit that you don't ever want to see. And like all of that. And I just was wondering if that is something that I'm happy to hear, I guess, is what I'm going for. That's not the same. It's not the same in our specific community.
No, in fact, I feel like since becoming a Lady of the Rose, I have really been given a lot of respect. And I mean, not to like toot my own horn, but I honor the respect that I'm given, and I try to earn it. I try to be worthy of it. Mm-hmm. So, because I know that just because for no other reason than because I have strawberry leaves, my voice carries further. And so I try to really, really be mindful of that. And something that I definitely learned from Edric, or absorbed from Edric, was he always listened to everyone, not just the peers. He listened to everyone because peers aren't the only people that hold wisdom. And that's something that I definitely learned from him. And so I don't know what that has to do with why people give me respect, but that's why, I mean, I try to be respectful of everyone. Yeah. Yes.
And I love hearing that. That gives me warm and fuzzies inside. So that makes me really happy. And now we're going to do a 180 and talk about, and I have 3 more questions and all of them are silly.
Okay. I love silly.
All right. The next one is you have to buy 5 items at a grocery store. Your goal is to make the cashier as uncomfortable as possible. Or like as like thought-provoking as possible. What would you buy? From like a regular grocery store.
Like not Target, but like
Vaughn's or Ralph's or Albert's.
Okay. All right. I would buy a cucumber, some Vaseline, cottage cheese. I don't know where I'm going with this. Just
5 random items, that's 3.
Whipped cream and Frosted Flakes.
I love it. I'm going to answer you in 2 seconds, but my puppy needs to pee. Please hold.
Okay. Holding.
Okay, we're back.
I like how you muted that so I couldn't hear it.
Well, no, it's like our door is just like super loud, and mostly it's for my ears after recording.
Got it.
Okay, so my question, or my five items from a regular old grocery store are gonna be sunscreen, puppy pads, a dragon fruit, like the really spiky ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Canned peaches and Tylenol. Those are my five weird. What the fuck are you gonna do with these 5 things?
Yes.
Items. Silly questions that I ask. Okay, so I have two more questions. We're gonna end with a question from Her Highness of the Mists. So the second to last question is: if animals could talk, who would be the rudest?
Oh, definitely Alice's cat.
Specifically Alice's cat.
Yes. Who I am glaring at this moment. He looks so cute. He is a menace. Mm-hmm. He is a menace. Spock. And
Spock. I love it.
Yes. Jason and Morgaine gave him to us so that we could give him to Alice. And she's standing in here now because she heard me talking about him. So she had to come in and pet him. But he's a punk. He is a punk. And Alice gives him a really cute little baby voice when she's talking like him. But I always give him like a voice of someone who's been smoking a pack a day for 30 years. So, because that's how I think he talks. Like that. So, yeah. He definitely has a foul mouth. And, yes. That's very specifically Alice's cat.
Alice's cat. Okay, I also have a very specific animal that is the rudest. We have a group of birds that live in we have like a weird tree bush thing. Like it's like a bush, but it's as tall as a tree. I don't understand. It's very weird. And for the entire decade that this family has lived in this house, every year from May until fucking August, this family of whatever the fuck bird yells from 1 a.m. to 4:30 a.m.
Of course.
Every fucking year. And it's just like, and the room that I'm in is as close to this tree bush as possible.
Naturally.
They're I think that now they're just like chirping at me and laughing at me that I'm still here after 10 years.
That is hilarious.
And it's just like, at least I guess I should be grateful that's only for this part of the year and it's not like all year round.
All year long. Yeah.
But goodness gracious, it just started like 2 weeks ago. And I'm over it already.
I'm sure.
All right. Last question from Princess Sarah of the Mists. I love her dearly, one of my darling friends. She asked this question to Sir Helga, and I thought it was equally important to ask you.
Okay.
And same rules apply. Aesthetics only. They don't open their mouth, and you know nothing about them.
Okay.
This, over there.
It's okay.
What is the sexiest part of a male and a female body?
The sexiest part of a male body has to be his forearms. Yes. Because if they're really strong and muscular, then you know that they're
strong and muscular.
Strong and muscular.
I read between those lines. Oh my gosh, that's so funny because so between Sir Helga, you and I, one arm was described. Because I like from the elbow up to the shoulder. She likes from the shoulder to the neck. And you like from the elbow to the wrist.
Yeah. I mean, I like all of that.
Oh, me too. But specifically.
Yeah. If I have to choose one part that's just
them big forearms, yo.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I made you blush and it's like my whole goal. I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And on a woman, I think the small of her back.
That's a good one. That's a good one because you can really see the muscles working. It's really fun. Mine are still stomachs. I like that because you can also see the movement a lot. It's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's it. We somehow managed to fit that all in a whole hour. Love it. Thank you so much, Your Grace, for coming on.
It was my pleasure.
A blast.
Yay.
And I'm going to have to shout out Alice for inspiring many, except for the last question. I miss Larry the unicorn. I can't wait till I can hear more stories about him.
He's a good guy.
He's probably talking on his cell phone somewhere.
He probably is.
Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you for including me.